I have no idea what osteoporosis is. I've
Yeah.
heard it a couple of times in my life,
hmm
but I don't know if it's something I should be thinking about, worried about, um, or what it means.
Yes. Osteoporosis is the word we use to describe low bone density.
Okay.
So the way we measure osteoporosis is using an X-ray called a DEXA scan, dual X-ray, and it compares your bone density to that of a 30-year-old healthy person, and it gives us something called a T-score. So it's like when you're in school and you're graded on a bell curve, and the center of the curve is average, and that's the average for a 30-year-old. When you get a DEXA scan score and it's positive, fantastic. You have bones of a 30-year-old. If you get a T-score on a DEXA scan that's from 0 to -1, it's okay. -1 is the definition of osteopenia, meaning watch out, your bones are getting weak. The definition of osteoporosis is minus a T-score of -2.5. Increases your risk of fracture by 40% or more. All the bad statistics that I talked to you about come with osteoporosis.
And how many people have osteopenia, osteoporosis
Yeah.
over the age of 50 in America?
Well, 2 million men have osteoporosis, interestingly. Isn't that interesting? You don't think about it as a men's disease. And 1 in 2 women will have an osteoporotic fracture, so at least 50% of women. But it's not inevitable. That's why I'm so interested in catching people early in the critical decade. It's not inevitable, but it will be inevitable if we don't catch it. But here's the thing that's bothersome. In the United States and in many other countries, with people I deal with, you cannot get a DEXA scan paid for until you're 65.
Hmm.
By 65, the damage is done. Why are we waiting? Even with people who have had a fracture, there's a gap in follow-up such that they should all have a DEXA scan, because the number one thing that predicts future fracture is past fracture. So, public service announcement, if you've had a fracture, get a DEXA scan. Even if it was a traumatic one, like you had been in a car accident. But definitely, if you have fallen, if your dog pulled you down, if it was a low trauma fracture, get a DEXA scan, because then at least you'll know where you are and can then plan a course for building your bone.
Are there any early warning signs that I might be suffering from osteoporosis or on my way to osteoporosis?
You know, I think you can get clues from your own family.
Okay.
If your mother shrank, if you used to be able to look your mother in the eye, like me, my mother looked me in the eye, 5'4", and now she's way down here. We lose height in both men and women due to compression of our spine vertebrae. We lose height. So if your dad shrank, if your mother shrank, that's a good indication that you have a family history where osteoporosis can exist. Or if your mother had a hip fracture, or if for some reason, maybe asthma, you've had to be on high-dose steroids your whole life, or an autoimmune. That's very bad for bones. So from a medical standpoint, from a family history standpoint, from a personal standpoint, usually fracture.
What about if I'm a smoker? Does that have an impact on my bone health and chances?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that. Smoking is a poison to bone healing, whether it is fracture, will heal more slowly. In fact, we have a much higher rate of non-union, which is where we fix a fracture and it still doesn't heal, in smokers. We know that there is a big body of data within the orthopedic literature for people who have spine surgery who are smokers. They are not only less healing, but they're more infected. So the noxious chemicals in smoking are very bad for bone.
Good thing I don't smoke. Is that smoking, vaping, or is it
It's all. Vaping might be more dangerous. We just don't have as much literature.
Okay. And the last thing before we talk about running and VO2 max and endurance and sports and all those things is the link between Alzheimer's and bone health. Is there a link?
That goes back to what we were talking about before, and there's a correlation. I don't believe we've worked out the causation, but there's a correlation. We see people with Alzheimer's and people with dangerous osteoporosis are sometimes the same group 30% of the time. People with brain disease also have osteoporosis. And it may be due to this connection that we've talked about between the two organ systems.